The old map of Northern Europe is dead. The quiet gaps are gone. The cold spaces that used to sit between NATO, the Baltic and the High North are being locked together, road by road, port by port, island by island. And right in the middle of that shift sits Sweden, building something that looks less like a single national military and more like an artillery-backed fortress for NATO's northern flank. This matters because in a war up north, speed is everything. Speed of detection, speed of movement, speed of reinforcement, speed of destruction. And Sweden is becoming one of the countries best placed to decide who gets there first and who gets hit first. By the end of this, you'll understand why Sweden's guns are only the visible part of the story and why the real weapon is the system growing behind them. For decades, Sweden occupied a strange place in Europe's security order. It was militarily serious, technologically advanced, geographically crucial, and deeply connected to the West, but still formally outside NATO. That created a problem no one could fully solve in peacetime. On the map, Sweden sat between Norway in the Atlantic facing north, Finland on Russia's doorstep, and the Baltic states further south. In a crisis, everyone understood Swedish territory, Swedish airspace, Swedish ports, and Swedish industry would matter. But the legal and military architecture remained incomplete. It was a house with load-bearing walls and no final roof. Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine blew that illusion apart. Finland joined NATO on April 4th, 2023. Sweden joined on March 7th, 2024. And with that, the northern map changed in a way Moscow cannot ignore. NATO itself said Sweden's accession strengthens the alliance in the High North and the Baltic Sea. Diplomatic language, yes, but translated into military terms, it means a major grey zone just disappeared. This is where the fortress starts. Not with a dramatic charge, not with some movie scene of tanks in a blizzard, with integration, with boring things that become terrifying in wartime. Agreements, corridors, stockpiles, joint planning, access rights, reinforcement routes. Sweden's Defence Cooperation Agreement with the United States entered into force on August 15, 2024. Nordic defence ministers signed a letter of intent on November 21, 2024, to develop strategic military transport corridors across the region. Sweden's own government has made clear that its NATO role is not passive membership, but active integration into northern deterrence, including as a framework nation for NATO's forward land forces in Finland. That is the difference between being near the front and becoming part of the machine that holds it. Now zoom in on the weapon that gives this whole story its sharp edge. Archer, Sweden's wheeled 155mm self-propelled howitzer. On paper, it is an artillery system. In practice, it is a timing weapon. Archer fires quickly, displaces quickly, and survives by refusing to stay where the enemy thinks it is. That matters even more in the north than it does on flatter, denser battlefields. Northern Europe is a land of long roads, narrow approaches, forests, exposed junctions, frozen ground, marshy seasons, and brutal distances. Every bridge matters. Every choke point matters. Every delay multiplies. In that environment, artillery is not just about smashing targets. It is about editing the map. It tells an advancing force where it may not gather, where it may not pause, and where its logistics will begin to die. And Sweden is not treating Archer like a niche prestige asset. In September 2023, Sweden awarded BAE Systems a contract for 48 additional Archer artillery systems. In March 2025, the Swedish government authorized procurement of 18 Archer units for donation to Ukraine, on top of the 8 already donated earlier. There are two stories inside that one decision. The first is obvious. Sweden believes modern artillery matters enough to keep buying it and keep the industrial line active. The second is more important. A country preparing for sustained high-end deterrence does not think in one-off press releases. It thinks in production. It thinks in maintenance. It thinks in barrels, trucks, ammunition, crews, spares, and doctrine. That is how an artillery wall is built, not by talking about firepower, but by normalizing it. This is the moment the story gets bigger than one gun system. Because artillery alone is not a fortress. Artillery inside a network is. Sweden's total defence resolution for 2025 to 2030 adds more than 170 billion Swedish kroner to military defence and 37.5 billion Swedish kroner to civil defence through 2030, with defence spending projected to reach 2.6% of GDP in 2028. That scale matters. It tells you Sweden is not simply buying a few extra capabilities to look busy in Brussels. It is rebuilding depth, military depth, industrial depth, civil depth. The government described it as historically large investments and the most substantial reinforcement of total defence in a generation. That means more formations, more ammunition, more resilience, and more ability to operate as part of NATO's real war plans rather than its polite peacetime habits. That is the logistics. Now here is the geography. Sweden sits at one of the most important military intersections in Europe. To the west is Norway and access toward the North Atlantic and Arctic maritime approaches. To the east is Finland and NATO's long land frontier with Russia. To the south and southeast is the Baltic Sea, the Baltic states, and the vulnerable web of ports, sea lanes, cables, and air routes that hold the region together. Sweden is the connector in the middle. Its territory offers depth. Its roads and rail matter for movement. Its ports matter for reinforcement. Its airspace matters for operations across the north. Its industry matters for sustainment. And then there is Gotland, the island that sits in the Baltic like a permanent strategic argument. Whoever can defend and use that island shapes surveillance, sea control, air defense, and reinforcement options across much of the central Baltic basin. In strategic terms, Sweden does not just add another flag to NATO, it adds the central hinge. That was the plan. Here is what it means in practice. If tension rises on NATO's northern flank, the alliance's challenge is no longer just, can we respond? It is, can we respond before the first damage becomes irreversible? That is where Sweden's artillery wall matters. Long before infantry lines clash, artillery begins shaping time and space. It can cover road movement, it can hit assembly areas, it can punish attempts to mass forces, it can force convoys off schedules, make bridge crossings lethal, and turn rear area logistics into a frontline problem. In the north, where the distances are huge and the number of usable routes is limited, that effect is magnified. One well-placed battery can make a whole sector feel radioactive. And when those batteries are linked to NATO planning, Nordic mobility corridors, maritime surveillance, and joint air activity, the result is not simply more firepower. It is a regional denial network. Sweden is also layering that firepower with smarter munitions. In June 2025, BAE Systems announced a new contract with the Swedish Armed Forces for 155mm bonus munitions, valued at nearly 600 million Swedish kroner. Bonus is designed for top attack against armoured vehicles, with 2 sensor-fused submunitions. That matters because it tells you how Sweden sees the threat. This is not just about bombardment in the abstract. It is about killing armour at the moment it tries to concentrate. It is about turning forest roads, staging zones, and exposed movement corridors into places mechanised forces do not want to be. Conventional shells create pressure. Precision-guided or sensor-fused shells create fear. Together, they create hesitation, and hesitation is gold in deterrence. But Sweden is not building a fortress of guns alone. It is building a fortress of layers. In January 2026, the government announced a major investment in ground-based air defence, worth approximately 15 billion Swedish kroner. That is crucial. Artillery without air defence is brave but fragile. In any serious modern fight, drone reconnaissance, precision strike, missile attack, and air pressure will hunt the very systems meant to stop the enemy on land. So Sweden is moving toward the right answer. Firepower protected by mobility, protected by air defense, protected by wider alliance integration. The wall survives because it is not just a wall. It is a system that can absorb pressure and keep shooting. This is where the northern flank stops being a slogan and becomes a machine. Sweden's 2025 foreign policy statement said the country was contributing to NATO's Baltic Sentry with up to 3 warships and a radar surveillance aircraft after damage to underwater cables in the Baltic Sea region. NATO launched Baltic Sentry on January 14, 2025 to increase critical infrastructure security. In 2026, Sweden's foreign policy statement went further, highlighting its role as framework nation for NATO's forward land forces in Finland, and noting that Sweden would contribute fighter aircraft to NATO's Arctic Sentry. Read that carefully, and a clear picture appears. The northern fortress is maritime, it is aerial, it is land-based, it is infrastructural. It is not one front line, it is a defended system stretching from undersea cables to Arctic airspace. No corridor, no reinforcement, no defense. That is the nightmare NATO is trying to avoid. And Sweden is one of the countries helping ensure it does not happen. The Nordic letter of intent on military mobility is especially important here, because armies do not teleport just because politicians use strong language. Heavy equipment needs roads, rail, ferries, ports, staging areas, legal permissions, fuel, recovery support, engineering support, and host nation planning. In peacetime, that sounds administrative. In wartime, it is the difference between an alliance that arrives in time and an alliance that writes angry communiques after the fact. Sweden's role in these corridors, together with its territory and its NATO status, turns it into a reinforcement engine for the north. And an artillery-heavy reinforcement engine is exactly the kind of thing that ruins invasion timetables. Russia, of course, still has tools: long-range strikes, hybrid attacks, cyber pressure, sabotage against infrastructure, pressure in the Baltic, threats in the high north. None of that vanishes because Sweden buys more howitzers and signs more agreements. But that is exactly why Stockholm's defence policy is broader than the gun line. Sweden's total defence concept explicitly ties military strengthening to civil resilience. More funding is going not just to units and weapons, but to the wider system that keeps society functioning under stress. That includes the unglamorous essentials of modern security: infrastructure protection, civil preparedness, municipal planning, and the ability to keep moving even when someone is trying to break the network. A fortress in 2026 is not just bunkers and barbed wire. It is cables, depots, local authorities, air defences, ports, and people who already know what their job is when the lights flicker. This is the moment many people still miss. Sweden's artillery wall is not important because it means the north is suddenly invulnerable. It matters because it changes the cost curve. That is what deterrence really is, not magic, not invincibility. Cost, delay, risk, confusion. The goal is to make any hostile military planner look at the Baltic, look at Finland, look at Sweden's depth, look at Gotland, look at the reinforcement routes, look at the surveillance picture, and conclude that the opening phase of a campaign would be slower, bloodier, and less predictable than before. That matters immensely in the north, where Russia would need speed to exploit surprise and fracture Allied response. Sweden helps take speed away. And when you take speed away from an aggressor, you often take the whole plan with it. There is also an industrial warning here for the rest of Europe. Deterrence is not built by speeches, and it is definitely not built by a single, shiny prototype wheeled out under dramatic lighting, like it is auditioning for a Defence Expo talent show. It is built by output. Sweden's continued Archer production, its bonus contracts, its wider defence investments, and its focus on unit growth all point to the same lesson. The countries that will matter most in Europe's next security era are the ones that can sustain capability, not just announce it. Factories matter, ammunition stocks matter, training pipelines matter, maintenance matters, spare parts matter. The Northern Fortress is being built from all of that, one practical decision at a time. So when we say Sweden's artillery wall is turning NATO's northern flank into a fortress, we are saying something larger than Sweden has good guns. The guns are the sharp edge. The real story is the architecture behind them: NATO membership, US access, Nordic mobility corridors, Baltic infrastructure protection, forward land forces in Finland, air defence expansion, civil resilience, industrial production, regional geography finally aligned with regional planning. Sweden is no longer a strategically useful non-member sitting nearby. It is now one of the states helping weld the northern flank into a single defended space. And that may be the most important point of all. The strongest fortress is often the one that does not need to be tested. The best artillery wall is the one that convinces an enemy convoy not to start its engines in the first place. Somewhere in the next crisis, that may be the quiet victory no one sees on camera. No dramatic breakthrough, no famous battle, just an invasion plan that never leaves the drawer, because the roads look covered, the sea looks watched, the sky looks crowded, the island in the Baltic looks armed, and the northern flank no longer looks open. It looks fortified. It looks connected. It looks expensive to touch. And in Europe right now, that is exactly the point.